Hey, book lovers. Welcome back to Seriously Sandra, where we get real about books and the brilliant minds behind them. Today, I'm beyond excited to chat with Doug Morrison. We're going to dive into his stories, the mystery, all his plots, and all of his writing magic. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's chat books. Welcome,
All
Doug.
right. Thank you
How
for
are
having
you?
me, Sandra.
Oh my goodness. It's so wonderful to have you. And it's
Thank
such
you.
a delight for you to be on here because we've met several years ago
Hmm.
and you had just come, I think Course Correction had just come out or had been,
Just come out,
it had
yes.
just come out. And this was such, I mean, the very first thing when it starts with, and the thing goes flying and you're like, wait, what? And so, for those who don't know you, Doug, tell them a little bit about the course correction and how you got into this.
Okay, well, back in the summer of 2006, I was invited to Ukraine to help out with kids camp. And I thought I was coming as an observer just to see what they were doing and how they were doing it. So I flew by myself all the way from Canada to Kiev, Ukraine, got met by someone I had heard about but never met. And the camp started, and all of a sudden, all the people that I thought were running the camp went home and they left me to be the main helper. So one morning, we were just having breakfast, and one of the little kids came up to me and said, "The KGB is coming in half an hour." And my thought was, yeah, right. There isn't even a KGB anymore. Well, there isn't a KGB, but there are the same kinds of men doing the same kinds of work. And in half an hour, they walked into camp. They took my passport. They told me I was holding illegal meetings. And I thought, okay, I am never going home again. I'm going to wind up in a gulag in Siberia. And all my friends and family are going to wonder what on earth happened to this guy. Well, long story short, obviously, I'm back home in Canada safely. But on the trip home, I swore to myself, I am never going back there ever again. And I ended up making 14 more trips over there. I kind of became an honorary Ukrainian. I'd step off the train and they'd say, "Oh, Doug, welcome home." And I'd leave to go back to Canada. And they say, "Well, we know you've got to make a trip to Canada, but I really hope you're going to come back home soon." So, probably maybe about the sixth or seventh trip, I was sitting there in the middle of a field. We were doing the kids' camp. We had probably, I'm not sure, I think we had 50, maybe 60 kids that year. And as I'm looking around, I'm realizing everything I'm seeing, everything I see here is absolutely normal to them. This is life.
Mm.
I mean, by that time, I could read a little bit of Cyrillic. I could make out a road sign. I could understand a little bit, ask some questions, answer some simple questions, maybe buy a bus ticket in Ukrainian. But I thought back to that first trip and how uncomfortable I was, and how on every trip since then, I had had no more run ins with the KGB, but I had had numerous dealings with the Ukrainian mafia. And I thought, you know, what would it be like for a Canadian to be dropped down into the middle of Ukraine, not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, not knowing anyone, how uncomfortable that was for me, how uncomfortable it would be for him. And I thought, well, how did he get there? And why did he get there? And what happened to him? And did he make it home safe or not? And so out of that idea, or out of those questions, really came the idea for the book Course Correction, about a Canadian who gets hijacked, literally hijacked to Kiev, Ukraine, and then on the run from the mafia because they think he's someone he's not. So yeah, that's how the book came about.
Wow. That is incredible. And you know, what's really interesting is because you took an ordinary citizen and then drop kicked them into this world. Like,
It
it's
was
like,
semi autobiographical.
you know, and it is that is the question. What do we do when we are in an uncomfortable situation like that? But then double that. One of the things I thought you did brilliantly is that you heighten the tension of that. You the vulnerability of what happens when you go somewhere you don't speak the language, you're drop kicked into it. It's a plane that starts off with this big plane thing that's going on, and it goes from there, and it's like boom, now what? And the tendency, the human response of fight or flight, and he's got to figure it out. And you
Right.
really made Michael figure it out. And then you paired him, your secondary character, Dimitri. Do you want to talk about like how you
Okay.
just did that? And with no and I promise, viewers, there won't be any spoilers. You gotta read it. But I just want you to get the juicy highlights.
Okay. Dimitri, in my mind, Dimitri really is the main character. Michael, we
More
we
than
see the
Michael?
story through his eyes.
Uh-huh.
Michael is the main character in the second book in the series, in Collision Course.
Right.
But in the first one, what we're really seeing is Dimitri's story through Michael's eyes.
Mm,
Dimitri is the one that goes through the changes.
yes.
He is not living such a great life. He's decided he's going to go straight. He thinks at first that Michael is one of the guys after him, and so kind of kidnaps him after Michael's been hijacked. He gets kidnapped, and he's mistaken for the bad guy. And then it comes to a point in the book where Dimitri has a chance to make a clean break or to help Michael, who he's been suspicious of.
Yes,
And
because
that's
you do a
kind of,
brilliant thing between, are they allies or adversaries? And
yeah,
and the juxtaposition between the two, it's like, you know, what are they? And
right.
even as a reader, you're not 100% sure. And I thought you did that quite well.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, well, they're not quite sure themselves either. So, yeah, and again, it kind of came back to some of my experiences with some of the people I met there. And I mean, I grew up during the Cold War. So Russia was the enemy, the Soviet Union was the enemy. And when I landed in Kiev, I mean, I knew I wasn't in the West anymore. I wasn't even in Western Europe. And so I was kind of half suspicious of almost everyone I met. They offer me a ride somewhere. Are they going to drop me off the side of the road? Are they going to steal my money? And don't get me wrong, there's some wonderful people. I made some lifelong friends there. I'm still in touch with them all these years later. But I was suspicious of everything and everyone. And I think, in a sense, some of them were suspicious of me. And so again, the story is pure fiction. The places are all real. There's everywhere in the book is somewhere I've been, right down to the dumpsters, the bridges, and everything. But the story is fictional, but the feelings that I felt kind of come out through Michael. The suspicion, the fear, the am I ever going to get home again? So yeah, kind of just that came naturally because that's what I went through.
And they do say write what you know, and you
Right.
actually took that and then wrote about it and then turned it in such an interesting way. Tell So in the second book, what the second book is for
The second
for,
book is called Collision Course.
yeah.
By the way, I got my pilot's license at the earliest possible age I possibly could, and course correction is a term that is used by pilots. You're off course. You
Oh,
don't just want to get to where you're going. You want to get back on the right path to where you want to get to. You want to get there the right way. And so course correction is what Dimitri is going through
mhm.
in the first book. In the second book, it's called Collision Course. And in Collision Course, it's a year later. Michael thinks everything is over and done. And then he gets a visit from the police, and they tell him that he's being tailed by these two suspicious characters. And Dimitri has disappeared. Michael's all alone back home in Canada. He's pursuing his dream of becoming a pilot, again, autobiographical.
Mhm.
And these two guys show up, and he goes, "What do I do now?" And so it's his growth. He's the one, instead of being the passive victim that gets dragged along on the journey in course correction, he decides he's got to set a collision course and become the proactive person that saves himself.
Which I think is so fascinating as you, again, the character arc, the how you're going from one to the other, with Dimitri and Michael, their journeys, and really connecting the two. I think that is fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Now tell us, it's you're just so fun to talk to and listen to, and the writing
Oh,
is
thank you.
absolutely cool. So now you got the Tide. Tell us about the
Right.
Tide. What is
Okay. The Tide again has a personal connection. Way back in grade six, I know, like another lifetime. One of the
last year,
stories we had
right?
to read, yeah, last year. One of the stories we read in English class was about two young merchant marine sailors. I'll explain the merchant marine in a second, but they are on a ship bound for England with some supplies to help England with the war effort. And their ship is sunk, and they spend several days adrift in a lifeboat. These are two very young guys. And one of the things about the merchant marine during World War II, if your ship sank, your pay stopped. So if your ship got sunk 3 days out of port and you spent a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks adrift in a lifeboat, you got paid for 3 days.
Oh,
And so, and also these are the only two guys that make it safely off the ship in this little story. So I became interested in the merchant marine. I found out that the merchant marine had the highest casualty rate of any branch in the service during World War II. You had a better chance of surviving being an infantry soldier, a sailor in the regular Navy, or even say a gunner in a bomber in the Air Force. They had a 27% casualty rate.
really?
27% of the sailors died.
Wow.
The sailors were mostly men, but about 2% of the sailors were women. And of course, Canada joined the war in 1939. And at that time, a lot of young Canadian boys, as young as 15, volunteered to be merchant marine sailors. They lied about their age and jumped on these ships. Now, what happened is these ships had to deliver 1 million tons of supplies every week to Great Britain. So, medical supplies, food, crude oil, ammunition, all kinds of things had to get through, or Britain would not have been able to carry on the war effort.
Hmm.
And um, Hitler was planning something called Operation Sea Lion, where he was going to invade Great Britain. And that probably would have come to pass had it not been for the Merchant Marine. These people are the reason we're free today. And my mom had a cousin who was from Norway, and he was out of the country when Hitler invaded
Hmm.
Norway. So he really didn't have a free home to go to, and so he signed up for the Merchant Marine, and he made 99 crossings during the war.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of the cargoes he had to deliver had to come out of New York Harbor and had to get safely to Cairo. Now, I don't know what the cargo was. He didn't talk much about his experience,
Hmm.
but in fact, the only thing he really ever said was shot at, never sunk. But he was on this ship. The cargo had to get to Cairo, and you would think they'd sail across the Atlantic through the Straits of Gibraltar, across the Med. And instead, because the chances of getting across were so slim, they went out of New York Harbor, turned south, rounded the tip of South America, across the Pacific, across the Indian, up through the Red Sea, and up to Cairo. So basically around the world to deliver this
Right.
one cargo. And so few people really know about the Merchant Marine anymore. Uh, they received no recognition, no thanks, no medals, no pensions. When the war was over, the governments of all the countries involved said, thanks, good luck in
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And I thought, this story needs to be told. So, back about the time you and I first met, I read this little 2-page blurb in a history book about the Merchant Marine and how Germany actually operated spy rings against them out of New York. Even though
Oh.
America was neutral, they were supplying Britain with a lot of supplies. So ships would come, say, from Venezuela or the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
They would come up to New York, Boston. In fact, I had an uncle, great uncle, who was badly burned in an accident in Boston Harbor with the Merchant Marine.
Oh.
Lost his nose, his ears, his eyelids.
Oh.
But he had to abandon a sinking ship that was burning, and he jumped into an oil pool that was on fire.
Wow.
But in New Jersey, in particular, the Germans were very active against the merchant marine sailors in pre-1941 America. They would befriend, like, they would say, take a job as a bartender, and then they would give free drinks to all the merchant marine sailors that came in. And, oh, when are you next sailing? What are you carrying? Get all the details, or get their wives or girlfriends' numbers and phone them up and say, hey, is Bill there? Oh, no, he sailed yesterday. And so they would take this information, they would send it to the Germans, who would forward it to the U-boat commanders, and they would know exactly where to sit and when to pick off these ships as they sailed by.
Wow.
And the ships were unarmed. Uh, there was, especially in the early days of the war, there really wasn't much protection for them.
Mm-hmm.
They sailed out maybe doing 8 or 9 miles an hour and had to plod across the Atlantic. So one of the spy rings in particular, there was a German. This is the only real character in the Tide.
Okay.
His name was Hermann Bruckner, and he posed as a preacher in kind of a street mission, and he focused on the merchant marine sailors from the occupied countries. So, say France, Holland, Belgium, Norway. And he would bring them into this street mission, and he would talk about how terrible the war was, and he would give them a place to stay and feed them. And then he would say, your chances of surviving this war are very slim. Like, you're
Huh.
probably going to die.
Huh.
And at some point, the war is going to be over, the world will be at peace again, and I have a way of getting you safely home to your country. And yes, your country is under German occupation, the Nazis are ruling it, but there's no fighting there. I can get you home safely, and then I'll get you back to your family, to your village. Give me your mom's name, your dad's name. And he would send them back there, but they never made it further than Spain or Portugal because the Germans had other plans for them.
Wow.
So I won't go any farther than that,
Oh my
because
gosh,
that would
that
almost be getting
is
into spoilers.
such.
Excuse me. But this is a real life spy ring that actually operated against them. And I thought, I've never heard about this, even though I know more about the merchant marine because of my family
Mm-hmm.
connections. I've never heard this story, and it needs to be told. So there comes the tide. And the question is, are you going to go with the tide or against the tide?
Ah, that is
And
remarkable. Yes.
this wasn't my quote, but this was someone else who knows the story. They
Mm-hmm.
said, this is the story of what happens when courage fails, because when courage fails, your true strength shows up.
Ah, that is
So
what? That's a
that's as
beautiful.
much as I'll say.
Oh my gosh, and you left us on a cliffhanger because again, they're getting this promise and they think they're going for one thing and then something else is going to happen. And then you're like, okay, now I want, like, wait, what? And I have to tell you, after reading and reviewing as many books as I have, and
Mhm.
I tell everybody I'm done with World War II. It's enough is enough is enough, and too much is enough. But then you hear a different perspective again from the Canadian, the Merchant Marines, and then this promise that was made of what,
Mhm.
and as you just said when you started talking, some of these Merchant Marines were so young. So, you're young, you're idealistic, you're believable, perhaps even gullible. So
Yeah.
somebody's going to say something, you're going to assume what you say is what you mean, right?
Right.
So then, oh wow. Okay, I have a question for you. Do you leave
Okay.
us on a cliffhanger, or am I gonna be biting? I haven't read it yet. I'm waiting. So, am I gonna be on a cliffhanger, or am I gonna be cheering? Tell us.
Um, well, you're going to see the character is just purely randomly a Norwegian merchant marine sailor. His name is Petter, and he has seen wrecks. He has suffered some uh, terrible things, which are
Mhm.
described in the book. And he gets this offer, and he thinks, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good." I mean, he waffles a little bit, because, well, I'm being a coward. Okay, do I take this offer or don't I? He takes the offer, finds out what the real deal is, and then he has to decide, am I going to take this or am I going to put everything at risk, including my family?
Ooh, ooh.
Is that enough or did you want something else?
No, no, no. I think we're gonna leave it at. I love. Just gave us just enough, and I love that, and it'll keep us going. Now, since this just came out, and I know it's like you just birthed this new book. I'm going to ask you, what's coming next for you after this one?
Okay, I've got a couple of things. I'm assuming you want this on the reading end or the
On
writing
the
end of
yeah, on the
things.
writing end, yeah. So,
Okay, I am working on a book. Again, I'm a Canadian, so my characters are Canadian. So imagine you've got this young magician. He's kind of got, this idea that he's going to be a Doug Henning, which Americans probably don't know. He was a very famous magician back in the 70s, Canadian. He did perform internationally, but of course, there's David Copperfield. So let's compare
mhm.
to that. He wants to be the next David Copperfield. And he's kind of paid his dues doing birthday parties and small shows and, so on. Finally gets his break, goes to the Magic Palace, and then he lands a show on Vegas, on the Vegas Strip, finally. So his one concluding illusion is that he gets these audience members and they disappear from the stage. And then they begin reappearing at different places in the theater, at this door, at that door. And of course, it's a big hit. He's got plans to expand this, do bigger and grander illusions, but he's performing this one night, and one of the audience members doesn't come back.
Oh, I can't wait. All right. I love it. I love it. I love your imagination. I love peeking in your mind. Your imagination is so brilliant. It's so much fun. It has been such a delight. So I have questions for you. So gonna go
Yes.
totally book side and switch a little bit as we're closing it out. You know, if you could donate three
Mm-hmm.
books to your local library, books, favorite books, things that you think every person should have. What three books would you donate to a library?
Okay, I cheated because I've watched your other videos
Ah,
and I knew you were going to ask this. So now my problem is I read more than 3 books a month,
yep.
but I kind of came down to 3 books that I think are really essential. And the first one is Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay. Yep.
Are you familiar with that book?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he developed something called logotherapy, which is basically, to oversimplify it, treating people's problems by helping them find meaning and purpose in life.
Uh-huh.
And that's something you helped me with about 7 or 8 years ago now, when I was going through a very rough time in my life. And some of the coaching you did with me, you helped me to find a purpose.
Ah.
And when I came across Viktor Frankl's book, I thought, that's it. People have to have meaning. It doesn't matter what it is. I
Mhm.
can't tell anybody what their purpose should be, but you need one.
Awesome.
And at my age, I'm seeing people that I know that are retiring, and they're retiring without purpose.
Hmm.
They're retiring from their job, and then they kind of go, okay, well, what now? And I think that purpose is so important. My second choice would be Ikigai.
Say it again.
And have you read that one?
No.
Ikigai?
No.
It's a Japanese term. It means purpose for life. So it's
Okay.
very closely related to Viktor
Mm-hmm.
Frankl. It's by two authors, Hector Garcia and Francis Morales.
Okay.
And they actually went to Japan where they lived this lifestyle. Now, their version of Ikigai is maybe kind of a Western version as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the pure Japanese. Like some people's in Japan, maybe their Ikigai is meeting with their friends over a cup of green tea.
Okay.
But they go through things like health and fitness activities, social connections, and they studied in particular the island of Okinawa, which has one of the longest lifespans in the world. And they found that a big reason for that is ikigai. They have purpose. They have a reason to get up every day, even if they're in their 90s.
Ah,
And
okay. Oh, that sounds
the
fun.
third book I would pick is
Yeah.
called Do It Scared. And I'm hoping I'm getting this lady's name right. It's Ruth Soukup, Soukup.
Okay.
And she talks about the 7 reasons people don't take action on their goals or their purpose. So
Okay.
maybe the perfectionist, the procrastinator, the rule follower, and she goes through 7 different areas and goes deep on the causes of it and the reasons it creates fear and the reason it stops people, and then analyzes it, goes through, well, that could really be a strength, and then how to sort of break free from that fear. So yeah,
Oh, I love
Do It
that.
Scared, Ikigai, and Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, I love that. It's always great to get such great book recommendations. Now, what's your favorite children's
Mhm.
book?
Okay, here I had a problem because I've got 2 of them. Can I cheat, or
You,
do I
you,
have to stick to one?
you can cheat.
Okay. Um, First one is a book that I have read so many times. In fact, the whole series, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by
Hmm.
C.S. Lewis and his Chronicles of Narnia. And the other book, and I'm trying to track it down because my mom read it to me when I was 4 years old and it changed my life. And it was,
Really?
do you remember those Dr. Seuss books? The I
Yes.
Can Read It All by Myself?
Hmm.
Okay, there was one called Anne Can Fly. And it's about this young girl who goes on a trip in an airplane with her dad, and he lets her fly the airplane. And she
Ah,
decides one day she's going to fly and she's going to learn to do it. And of course, at 4 years old, I decided I was going to be a pilot. And so I got my license when I was still in high school. So yeah.
that is awesome. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right. As we're closing out, this has been so delightful. Where can people find you? Where can our viewers find you? Like, what's this?
Okay, probably the best place would be on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Doug Morrison. I've also got a Facebook page that I haven't been really too diligent in keeping track of or updating called Course Correction. So that's an
Okay.
easy one.
All right.
That's my first book. So that's probably the best places.
All right.
And yeah,
Super. Oh my gosh. Doug, this has been such an incredible conversation.
no,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I viewers, it was so wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insights. So if you haven't read Doug Morrison yet, what you waiting for? And I'm telling you, guys, you're just going to be in for a treat and a wild ride, and he's going to
I'm
take
sorry.
you on a journey. So check out, there you go. You'll be able to check out the links below. I'll post them there. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop comments about your favorite key takeaway from today. Until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and keep sharing your own stories. Goodbye.